Go ahead and get started. Thanks, Josh. Hello, everyone. My name is Whitney Barkley, and I'm the owner of Speakerazi, where I provide training for artificial intelligence for small businesses. I'm excited to talk to you all today because I know you've been working pretty hard this semester working with the entrepreneurs inside of your program. I want to back up a little bit by sharing just a little bit of my background. So, how I'm actually connected to the University of Notre Dame is through a program that I used to run called the Urban Elevation Accelerator. So I live in Dayton, Ohio, and I work for the University of Dayton. And in my time, I worked as a director working with small business owners and entrepreneurs in West Dayton. And a lot of the problems and things that you guys probably see on a regular basis was a big reality for me. But one of the things that I saw as an opportunity was the emergence of AI. So when AI became more mainstream in 2022, I had already been using it for several years, but I wanted to use that as an opportunity to work with small business owners. And so the information and tools that I'm sharing with you today is going to come from two lenses. One, as someone who has worked with entrepreneurs in a resource capacity, but also as an actual entrepreneur. So a lot of these things are coming from my own experiences as well as experiences working with other small businesses. And so today, what we're going to cover is just some best practices as you're helping businesses adopt AI and start with a different type of mindset. I also tell people that there's levels to this. And so we're going to talk about some of the different AI applications that are available and which ones might be best fit for specific problems that your business owners may have. And then we'll do a deep dive into tools. So we'll look at some of the common tools that you might be using, like ChatGPT, but I want to go deeper than just prompting or just having a conversation. I want to show some of the tools that you may not be using that could be beneficial for your clients. We'll also look at other tools that you are able to use for some of the different functions that your clients might be able to use. And then finally, I'll leave the end for a Q&A. But of course, if you have any questions throughout this process, please feel free to jump in and ask because I definitely want to make sure that I'm giving you guys what you need. So, first things first, I always wanted to start with this question. And the thing is, what allows a business to thrive? And I think about that question from the lens of our small business owners, because in reality, a lot of our business owners, they're building the plane and flying it at the same time. So, oftentimes, systems is usually the last thing that they're implementing, and it's not something that's typically a part of that foundation. And when we build business systems, I think it's really just important to understand specifically with AI, not just how do we add AI in, but how do we really look at things from an AI first method. And so what we're seeing now in the market, we'll see with big companies, Fortune 500s, everyone's trying to figure out how do we make AI a thing? How do we really make it something that changes the trajectory of how we work? And small businesses are doing the same thing. And so as we go through some of these tools today, I want you to come at things from that specific lens. How can we leverage these tools to really change how people might be approaching their work? So not only can they become sustainable, but potentially scalable if that's their desire. And so, one of the things that I've learned in my experience, just working with different organizations and also small business owners, is thinking about involvement. You either have folks who are like, I love AI, I'm ready to embrace it. Some people are more resistant, and some people are indifferent. But regardless, there's a couple of things that I think that would be helpful as you are working with business owners. So, the first thing that I like to do is to share stories and case studies. So, it's really important for people to see that other people like them are leveraging these tools and are finding success with these tools. So if you can show those examples of similar businesses who have successfully adopted AI, it makes that integration and acceptance of it a lot smoother. The other piece of it is being very simple in how you break down those concepts. I think one of the challenges that many small businesses get frustrated with is that some things are too technical. They're terms that they've never heard before. And so it's really important to think about, what is the language that I could share with that particular business owner to really make sure that the point is getting across and they truly have an in-depth understanding of how to leverage specific tools. I'm very a big proponent of hands-on demonstration. So as we'll do some of those things today, but I think sometimes seeing is believing. So it's easier for people to see things rather than to hear about them. I also would encourage incremental adoption plans. So when we look at AI, a lot of people just kind of jump right in, but it's really important to be thoughtful about how you might want to approach, right? So thinking about how do you start small and then gradually start to implement AI over the time. And then finally, thinking about a supportive community. You all are building that within your work. You have entrepreneurs who are coming inside of your center, but really just making sure that they're being paired with other business owners who are experimenting so they can have those conversations. Because what I find is when you can find community around learning tools like AI, you're more likely to use them and explore because you're hearing other experiences and you have others that you can share it with. Now, the other piece that I think is important, and I won't go too in depth here, but as you are working with small business owners, it's important for them to really think about some of these things. First and foremost is data privacy. Depending on, what they do, some might be a little bit more sensitive than others. So I think it's really important for businesses to think about as they are using AI, what part of their data are they using? And then more importantly, when they're using the tools, how are the tools leveraging their data? Oftentimes, with clients that I've worked with, particularly in this space, they're looking for low cost or free tools. And I always tell people when things are low cost or free, possibly, you become the product, right? The company is leveraging your data. So it's really important to think about data privacy and making sure that they're being very thoughtful about what does that look like for their particular company. AI bias is also something that's important. So understanding if there are biases within the tool. So for example, if you have a client who's looking to make their first hire and let's say they have a job application and they want to leverage AI to help them find the perfect candidate, you want to make sure that when that AI tool is looking at that candidate, they're looking at it from a lens that eliminates bias, right? The other piece that I think is important to think about, in the general market, we're thinking about job displacement, but business owners think about the same thing. How can AI replace what I'm doing? Are people still going to want to work with me when there are other options available that incorporate AI? So, I always think that that's something to consider and think about, especially for those business owners who are on the fence. I recently ran into someone who came to a conference that I did about a year ago, and she shared that, her competition had been using AI for a while, and she thought that, hey, I don't have to use this anymore. This is not a thing. But the reality is, she became behind. There were people who were leaving her business to go work with some of her competitors just simply because they were more efficient and were able to deploy things a lot more quickly. So, I would say that if you come across that working with the small business owners, really showing them, what does the reality look like if they use AI versus them not actually using it. And then finally, thinking about accountability. I know a lot of times, we sign up for websites and we start to use these new tools and we get super excited because it's like, wow, I finally have something at convenience, but convenience also comes with a cost. I think it's really important to understand, when someone is using the tools, who's ultimately going to be accountable, especially if they're working with other individuals within the same organization or company. So, who is ultimately responsible and who keeps up with specific things? So, I want you to keep that in mind as a consultant and as you guys are working with individuals. These are some of the things that you might want to keep in the back of your mind to really make sure that these processes are safe for the entrepreneur, but also to make sure that they're looking at it holistically and not just using the tools just to get a quick output. So let's talk a little bit about the tools and some of the ones that we'll look at today. So when we think about AI, AI is simply learn, speak, see, and do. So we know that AI is a machine. It ultimately learns from multiple sources, literally thousands upon thousands of pieces of information on the internet to ultimately give you a result based on what you prompt or when you have a conversation. I have a friend at Northern Kentucky University. Her name is Dawn Park. She runs AI boot camps. And she always says that we're in the flip phone era of AI. So, back in the day, we didn't have these smartphones that we have now. People had flip phones. phones. And at that time, people thought it couldn't get any better than this, right? We have a mobile phone. But the reality is things did get better. And that's how it's going to be with AI. Even as someone who is a practitioner of AI, there are literally changes that are being made every single day in the industry. And so it's really important that our entrepreneurs are on the ground floor and they understand the value of using these tools, even if they don't have a tech-based business, because I think sometimes people have that notion that they have to be tech-based to be able to use that. No, you don't. But it's really important to make sure that they're upskilling and understanding how it can be a value add to the business. And so, one of the things that I ultimately think about when we first approach tools is knowing that there are generalists and there are specialists. Almost look at it like going to the doctor's office, right? You have your primary care physician, you might see them once a year, you get your checkup, and they can do a little bit of everything, right? But let's say you have a problem, something that's a little bit more specific, a little bit more deep. You have to go to that specialist. And so, I look at AI tools from the same lens. Your generalists are like your chat GPTs, your Claudes, even Canva to a certain extent. They can do a lot of different things and give a lot of great outputs. But then you have tools that are specialists. So think about tools like Opus Clip, for example. So if you have clients who are creating content on a regular basis, maybe they do long form YouTube videos that are 10 minutes or more. Opus Clip can take that YouTube video and chop it up into 60-second, 90-second clips so they can repurpose over the internet. Or maybe you use a tool like Descript. Maybe you have a client who has a podcast and they want to transcribe their podcast content. And maybe they want to eliminate filler words like, you know what I'm saying. You can do all of that inside of Descript simply by creating that transcript, deleting words, and it will simultaneously modify your audio outputs at the same time. So that's what I mean by generalists and specialists. And so in our case today, we're going to look at a combination of both, but we're going to focus more on some of the specialty tools so you can really leverage them to work with your clients. And so, really quickly, as I said, there's always levels to it. So, just very quickly, at a high level, when we look at AI, you have chatbots, custom GPTs, AI assistants, and AI agents. So, chatbots at the minimum is what we've been interacting with. You've all have been to websites where you go on a website and you ask a question and you talk to a chatbot and correspond. Or, if you think about a tool like Claude or ChatGPT, you're having a conversation and you're prompting back and forth. So, it's very simple, it's basic. It can do a certain level of research for you, it can help you brainstorm and ideate, and it's very basic. Now, in the next level, we look at something called a custom GPT. So, custom GPTs are inside of the Chat GPT environment. Inside of Google, if you're a Google person, they might be called gems. But custom GPTs give you a different level of personalization. It doesn't necessarily just look for information all over the internet, but it will take specific documents that you create and perform a specific task. So later on, when we go into chat, I'll show you how I was able to create a proposal generator. So as a small business, proposals is a big pain point. And a lot of times people miss opportunities because they're not sure about how to format the proposal. It takes too much time. Our GPT allows us to put in simple pieces of information and it will generate that proposal based on that person's background and what it is that they do. So that's just one example. You all are probably familiar with AI assistants. So if you have your Siri or your Google Assistant, they can help you with very basic things like playing a song or the weather, but they're not going to do complex tasks. But the new terrain and where we are is with AI agents, right? So you all have probably heard about agents in the last 6 months or so. And agents, they're autonomous. They can work on your behalf. They can think for you. They can work with other tools. And ultimately, it doesn't always necessarily require a human in the loop. Now, you always want a human in the loop to make sure that you get the best result. But an agent is a little bit more independent and doesn't require as much time that you would spend with something like a chatbot. Now, one of the things that I think is important to share, and it's a really big conversation, do I need AI or do I need automation? So there's two tools that you're seeing on the screen, which is Make.com and Zapier.com. So these are automation tools, arguably. Some people think they're kind of blended now to a certain degree because they have agents and they also have automations. But sometimes when you work with clients, you'll find that, they'll be pushing for AI, but really what they need on their back end is an automation. And so I'm going to show you an example of these tools, but one of the things that you just want to keep in mind is how does automation fit into a problem that a client might be having? Is it setting up a tool like Zapier and Make? And simply put, what they do is they're the middleman. They make two totally different systems that don't connect in the middle. So they allow them to speak to one another so people don't have to do the manual legwork. And so I'll give an example with that once we get inside of our tools. And so, with that being said, once we start working with tools, we always want to start with the problem and not the tool. I think one of the common things I'm seeing is that so many people are signing up for different tools and are not finding the output because, they feel like they need to be on every single tool. But the reality is, you want to think about what problem it is that you actually have. And so, what I would love for you all to do at this point is to just share really quickly with me what are some things that your clients might not want to do? Like, if you had a magic wand and could fulfill their every wish, what would it look like to help your clients? And what are things that they're struggling with in this moment, just based on the experiences that you have?
Repetitive tasks.
You said repetitive tasks,
Yeah, and going through file cabinets.
going through file cabinets. Okay,
I
that's
think
a
one
good
big
one.
one is like tracking expenses and writing it down and then putting it in their entries each month.
Putting in their expense and entries every month. Okay, so that's good. So managing their financials. I love that.
Another one is uh, being able to summarize a brainstorming with an AI and be able to pick up the useful information because sometimes it provides a wide range of information. So summarizing the learning.
I love that. Okay, so summarizing it to make sure that they make the best decision based off of that summary. That's great. So I'm glad that you all said some of those different things because in reality, AI can assist with all of these things. So one of the things that I know specific to your particular program is your 80 steps, right? So I wanted to take an example from the 80 steps because I'm also familiar with this. So one of the 80 steps that we have is establish standard operating procedures, right? So for many of our clients, that may be a really big problem. They do everything that they do all the time, but they don't have it written down anywhere. So if something were to happen, or if there's, some reason why they could not be in front of their business to perform the work, they don't really have the procedures written down so someone can step in and be able to help, right? So obviously this could be a big problem. And so when we look at the SOPs, we could approach it from so many different lenses. And so with our SOPs, I'll use an example. So you may have someone who is on the go, they're always busy, and maybe they just can't sit down and write something, right? But what I find, especially with my experience, is that if people can talk out their different steps, it's very likely for them to create those SOPs. And so when we get into Chat GPT, we're going to use this as an example so I can show you how to use the voice feature so your clients can start to document some of those processes. Now, a couple of things, and then we're going to get on to some of the demos. So, questions to ask before you implement. So, as you're working with clients, of course, first and foremost, you're asking about what problems are we trying to solve with AI? And the follow-up to that is what will still need a human touch? So, it's so tempting. People think that AI is the great savior, it's going to do all the things. And in reality, it is a great supplement, it's a great assistant, but some things still require them to be inside of the loop. So it's really important when you work with clients to really think about, what is something that AI shouldn't touch. For some people, that might be customer service, right? Having that personalization. For some people, that might be content. They want to use AI to brainstorm and help with the back end, but maybe they want the content to really have a human sounding perspective. Do we have the data required to support AI? So there's a saying, garbage in, garbage out. It's really important to think about the cleanliness of data. One of the challenges that our small businesses face is they have data, they get their records, but they don't know how to read it, or they don't know how to make certain decisions based off of their profit and loss statements or based off of their marketing dashboards. They look at their Facebook or Instagram analytics and have no idea what to do with that data. So it's really important to think about how can data support some of their decision making processes, and then more importantly, making sure that they know how to access that data and leverage AI so they can read it and really get a sense of how that data could be helpful. The third is, what is our capacity for developing and maintaining AI solutions? Today, we're going to look at an application called Relay.app. So Relay.app is one of those tools to help with some of the automation and agent pieces. And it's one of those things that need to be maintained over time, right? Sometimes things break. Sometimes we have to go in to make sure it's working effectively. So they have to be very conscious of, if they do create some of these things, how will they maintain it over time? And then how will AI integration impact our workforce or culture? So if they do have other employees, or even if they're working with interns, or even if they're working with students, I know specifically in programs like this, there are some student groups that work with the entrepreneurs. Like, what does that look like? And then finally, of course, the ethical and legal considerations. We talked a little bit about that, but more specifically, what is their policy? I think it's important that as businesses start to use it, and as they move from a casual user to a more regular user, and they're fully embracing it inside of their business, they want to think about an AI policy. So how do they treat their customer data? What is AI good to be used for versus what it's not going to be used for? And even if they're a team of one, or, if they have a very small team, it's going to be really important to establish these things now versus later, because this is going to become something that's more mainstream. All right. So I have maybe two more slides. So AI tool implementation tips. So as a consultant, one of the things that I think is really important for you all to do is to work with clients to take inventory of their current tech stack. So what technology are they already using inside of their business? And I think this should be done on a quarterly basis. And a lot of times there are tools that already have AI integrated. So you all talked a little bit about the financial piece. So, like, for example, right now, QuickBooks is usually kind of one of the preferred providers for looking at their finances. QuickBooks has a ton of AI features built in on the inside, from reports to reminders to different clients. They do analysis, and they give you different perspective of insights. So, again, before someone runs out to go buy another tool, it's more than likely they may have tools that they're not currently leveraging. So I think that's important. I think it's also important to think about the reduced cost. So which tools will provide the most benefit based on their goals? Integration is key. So the more that tools can integrate with other tools, I think the better. And then also making sure that they're using the trials. So one of the challenges I see is that people sign up for things, but they don't maximize it to see if it really is fulfilling a need. So I will highly encourage to make sure that clients, they sign up, but they don't ghost the tool. They need to really sign up and truly get a feel for it to see if it's something that's truly beneficial for them. And then really quickly, we talked already about data quality, but also making sure that with these projects that they're starting small. So start with small and manageable projects so they can really understand capabilities. I think the smaller the project, the more confidence that is built over time. All right, so let's talk about our AI tools for business growth. When it comes to business growth, I always say these few things that's going to be really important. First and foremost, learn the terms and conditions of every platform, especially if someone plans to monetize or use AI for monetization. So you might have clients where they're like, hey, I want to build an ebook with AI, or I want to open an online store and I want to use AI elements inside of my store. Really make sure they understand how they are allowed to use those things that they create, because every tool is not built equally. And so it's important to understand how the terms and conditions impact. The other piece is understanding the settings. That's not normally the first place that people go, but one of the things that I'm trying to train people to understand is, when you get on a new tool, explore the settings first to see what's set to default versus what are the preferences that you want over time. So for example, inside of Chat GPT, there is a specific area, and I'll show it to you a little bit later, but it basically says that ChatGPT can train on your data to update its models. As a small business owner, you probably don't want that. So you want to turn it off, and I'll show you guys where to do that. But in contrast, they have something called the memory feature. We want to make sure that that's turned on to make sure that it can recall past conversations so we don't have to keep talking about the same thing over and over again. I always tell people not to use it like Google. It is a conversation, especially if you're using a generative AI tool. And you always want to verify the information. So making sure that you're keeping a human in a loop and remembering that your client is the expert. So it's very easy to just say, oh, well, that sounds really good. I'm going to go with that. No, they have to really make sure that the answers are indeed what they are looking for. All right, so let's talk about some of these tools. So these are some of the ones that we'll be looking at closely today. So we'll be looking at ChatGPT, looking inside of Gemini. There's a feature inside of Canva, Zapier, Relay.app, Gamma, and if we have time, also Scribe. So I'm going to go ahead and start with ChatGPT. Hopefully everyone can still see my screen. Can everybody still see my screen okay with ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let me maximize my screen again. All right, so we are inside of Chat GPT. So most of you are familiar with this from what I understand. So just a couple of basics before we go into some of the tools. So the first thing that we want to do is to look at our settings, as I mentioned before. So if you click on the name at the bottom left-hand corner and go to settings and then go to data controls, you see where it says improve the model for everyone. We want to make sure that that piece is turned off. So again, this is just to ensure that your client's information is not being shared and ChatGPT is not training on this particular piece of information. This is being recorded, so you guys can come back to look at this again, but I think it's an important element to look at. The second piece is looking under personalization. So under personalization, there is a setting for memory. And so I always make sure that these are turned on. So reference save memories, reference chat history, and reference record history. And this is especially important if you are someone who uses the voice mode. So again, these are some of the settings that you want to make sure that are turned on and off. A couple of other honorable mentions. Inside of your settings, there's something called apps and connectors. So as you can see, I'm connected to Canva, I'm connected to my Google Calendar, I'm even connected to Spotify. So these are additional apps that can enhance your experience, right? So let's say you have a client who heavily uses something like Google Drive. ChatGPT can pull from their Google Drive and recall specific documents or specific files that you might need for a conversation. Same thing with your Gmail. You know, you have a client who may say, hey, like, I want to know if I'm available for something at a specific time, and ChatGPT can go into your records to see if you scheduled any meetings around a specific time. So it's really important to, kind of see what they're using and to see if any of these connectors will be important. These are especially important for ChatGPT agents because it automatically gives them some of that access. There's another setting called schedules. So if you click on manage, it will show you everything that you have scheduled. Now, these are all scheduled things that I have that happen daily. And so I'll give you an example. So one of the things that I have scheduled is send a daily media pitch. So there was a point in time where I wanted to get more coverage and I wanted to be featured in different publications. So I asked ChatGPT every day to send me the name of an editor, the name of a publication, and a customized pitch based off of my niche that I can personally send to someone. So I get that every single day. Or for an example, I get a new video idea every day. I love to make video content, and Chat GPT at 7 a.m. will send me a new idea of a video that I can record to take away some of that ideation, but more importantly, remind me to stay consistent with some of my content goals. So again, you can create a schedule and it will essentially run on a schedule every single day. And when you create a schedule, you simply have to say, hey, chat, remind me to do a new pitch every single day. The key word is making sure that you incorporate the word remind so it understands that it's a task over time. So that's just another example. And then I'm go back right back to settings. And then finally, the other piece that I think is important is authentication. So, depending on how their security is set up, you can set it up to where they have two-factor authentication or text messaging authentication. So, for those who really value privacy, you definitely want to make sure that you have the multi-factor authentication set up because you'll get those questions from some of your clients as well. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the applications. So I'm going to go back to the home screen. The first thing that I want to share with you all that I think is important are the GPTs. So if you go to your left-hand side under GPTs and Explore, you'll see a GPT store. So these are GPTs that have been created from people from all over the world. So they base it based on these topics: writing, productivity, research and analysis, education. They have a number of different topics where people can publish and create it to share with others. Fortunately, we can also create GPTs that we can use internally. So I'll give an example. So inside of my business, I have something called the Speakerazzi Proposal Generator. So this is a GPT that I've created. And so my pain point as a business owner was it was really hard for me to write proposals. A proposal could easily take me 2 hours. And so by creating this GPT, I went from about 2 hours to about 15 to 20 minutes. And typically, what happens when you build a GPT, and this is the back end of my environment, but you'll see a screen that says create. And it will essentially have a dialogue with you about your GPT. It'll ask, what do you want to build? What do you want to name it? What type of image do you want to put in? Are there things that you want and things that you don't want? So all these things will populate on the left-hand side, right? On the right-hand side, this is your sandbox. So this is where you can actually test out that GPT to see if it's working to the specifications that you're looking for. Now, if we go back over here to the left and look at configure, everything that you had a conversation about under create will be formatted under configure. So it will create the instructions, give a description. It even creates conversation starters. So these are quick things that you can click to ensure that your GPT can quickly give you something that you need. So you'll notice that under the GPT and knowledge, I have something called a project proposal template. So I have a very specific format of how I want my proposals to look every single time. And the format is readily available. And that's what Chat GPT copies when I'm using this particular GPT. Under my instructions, I'm saying exactly what it is that I'm looking for. I'm saying how the GPT should behave with me by asking targeted questions to gather details. It's going to ask for client details, the scope of work, the deliverables, timeline, budget. And so it gives me a really comprehensive look. And so my science to this is when I have a call with a client on Zoom, I record those calls. So I record the call. I take the transcript of the call, and either I take the transcript of the summary and I drop it into this GPT and it formats it based off of the conversation I've had with the client. It may ask me a few follow-up details, but it's going to give me the exact format that I want every single time. Now, if you have other things, right? So let's say I wanted to show examples of proposals that didn't do too well. I can upload that here. Or if I wanted to show examples of proposals that I've won over time, I can also show it in my knowledge base. Again, the beauty of the GPT is that it can learn directly from your documents. Now, I do have the capabilities at the bottom where it can search the web. It can use ChatGPT's Canvas feature where I can edit it in real time. But ultimately, it's going to pull from my knowledge base over time. So you might say, well, how can my clients use this? Well, they can use it for things like proposals. They can use a GPT to repurpose content. Some clients have used GPTs as a lead magnet. So if they are, if they have their own particular set of clients, their clients can leverage their GPT as a part of a program or as a part of a service that they're offering over time. So again, the GPTs can really be your best friend depending on what type of function that you're looking to build with it. So again, when you publish the GPT, it's really nice because when you publish it, you can share it for just yourself. You can share it to anybody with the link. And then sometimes you can also share it within the GPT store. So again, that is one example inside of ChatGPT, a feature that I think is under leveraged or underutilized. Now, the next feature that I think is important to note, there's two really. So some of you might be familiar with deep research. So deep research is really good if you have a client who's looking to get some information about something. So examples of how we've used deep research for clients is to do market research. So understanding like who is within what other competitors are within the market. I've had clients personally do SWOT analysis on their own business. So they essentially can look up their own business or personal brand, and the deep research will provide a very detailed report. If you've used this feature before, you know that it takes anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes to generate content. You won't see it generate immediately as regular chats. But the deep research feature is really good for any type of research that someone may be looking for over time. Now, the other piece that I think is important are your agents, right? So you have ChatGPT agent mode. The agent mode is really good because it will do things in real time for you, right? So let's say, for example, it's giving me some examples at the bottom. I'm going to choose one. So let's see, find a Las Vegas hotel and flight package on Expedia. That could be relevant to me. I go to a conference every year in Las Vegas as a business, and it's very tedious to look for details, right? So it's generating some things. So it's doing a hotel package from Chicago to Las Vegas, is giving the flight details, where we're going, what time I need to be there, what time I need to get back, how much money I'm willing to spend. Of course, this is just an example prompt, but we can customize this in any way that we like. So once you click it, the agent will start to think, and you'll be able to start to see its thought process. Let me start over, try again. Did we stop ChatGPT? Give me 1 second. One moment. All right, so it's still doing it. There we go. So you see that it creates kind of its own environment to kind of look up those hotels. So you'll be able to see everything that this particular agent is doing, right? So it's looking up where the person is leaving from, and it's going to add the destination. And it's essentially going to look at everything that I specified in this criteria. And, this is a process that can go, like, this is literally something that you can walk away from and come back, and it'll say, hey, like, we found these options or these opportunities for you. And you can even pay for your flight through this platform. You don't necessarily have to. I know some people are picky about privacy, but nevertheless, the agent is going to do most of the work for you. So, think about how you can leverage a tool like agents for your clients. What's something that can be done autonomously that they don't need to be involved in? I've seen people use this tool to, again, look for options. I've seen people use it to make appointments. I've seen people use agents for research. So I'll give an example. I went to a conference and they had a list of all the participants, but they only listed their name and the company. I leveraged my agent to go to that web page, and the agent found every publicly available email for the individuals who are at that event. So if you have clients who are networking and looking to grow their business, that could be a really great example of how to use it. So agents, again, are something that's great. You see, this is still going pretty heavy. I won't wait for it because we have so many other examples. But again, this is a tool and feature that I think is going to be key. Now, the last thing that I want to share with you all is the voice feature. So this is voice mode. Hopefully everyone can hear it. Hey, chat. This is Whitney. I am looking to create a SOP for how to update my LinkedIn profile. Can you give me some interview questions so we can flesh out this SOP?
Absolutely, Whitney. Let's get you some questions that'll help show up the SOP for updating your LinkedIn profile. Here are a few interview style prompts. Current profile state. Do you currently update your LinkedIn profile? And which sections do you find yourself tweaking the most? Profile goals. What
Hey,
are the main
chat.
goals you want your LinkedIn profile to achieve right now? For example, are you focusing on attracting speaking engagements, training opportunities, or new connections in AI and personal branding?
Hey, chat. Really quickly, when you give me these questions, please ask them one by one so I can answer them, and then we can turn it into an SOP.
Absolutely, I can do that. Let's go one at a time. First question. How often do you currently update your LinkedIn profile, and which sections do you find yourself tweaking the most?
I update my LinkedIn profile once a quarter, and I typically update my headline to make sure that I have the best keywords. And I also update my work experience and also my awards and projects. So I am keeping a current record of things that I was able to accomplish over time.
Perfect. That's a great start. So you're updating quarterly and focusing on your headline, your work experience, and also your awards and projects. Next question. What are the main goals you want your LinkedIn profile to achieve right now? For example, are you aiming to attract more speaking engagements, more training opportunities, or something else?
I want my LinkedIn profile to provide more visibility for new training opportunities. And at this time, can you take what I've said very briefly and create a small standard operating procedure?
Absolutely. Let's put that into a quick SOP outline. Here's SOP updating LinkedIn profile for training visibility. Objective to ensure the LinkedIn profile is consistently updated to attract new training opportunities. Update frequency, update once every quarter. Sections to update. Headline, adjust the headline to include relevant keywords that reflect current training and AI expertise. Work experience, update any new roles, responsibilities, or notable projects related to training. Awards and projects. Ensure recent awards and completed projects are listed to showcase accomplishments.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there because I want you all to kind of to see that. So let's see, I'm going to retry it. So as you can see, when you have that conversation and start to talk back and forth, you're able to see your responses over time. And it's also starting to generate what this looks like, right? So section 5, what does success look like for you? So it answers some of the questions. Let's see. Generate the SOP. Hopefully it has it up. All right, so it's taking my responses and it's actually pulling it into an SOP. Now, again, if you have a specific format, you can do it, but this is a great start for clients. The voice feature is underutilized. It's really great for documenting things like this. I also think it's a great tool for content creation. I find that when people type things, they self-edit and they don't often kind of bring the full energy that it can have with content. So using that voice feature can be something that's key. And so those are some of the tools within Chat GPT. Now, there's another quick tool that I want to share with you all. And I'm going to go over to Relay. So this is Relay, and this is relay.app. So relay.app, it's a free to low cost tool, and it creates some automation slash agent style work. So I'll give you all an example. So inside of Relay, I'm going to click on the automated pre-call brief. So in this environment, you are able to chat with your assistant and you can build a specific thing. So I was able to chat with my assistant to build out a pre-call research tool. So anytime that someone books a meeting on my calendar, it extracts their name and the company, and it essentially will send me a report about who that person is before I get on a call with them. So that way, when I get on the call, I have a little bit of research about who they are and what they might want when they work with me for my business. And so I'll show a quick example. So I'll do a test run. So this is a test run, and I'll do a test run for my name. So we'll start the run. And so this is a test run. I'm kind of running it through just so you all are able to see it. But it is essentially going through all of these different process. So I started the test run event. It pulled up a person who was on my calendar. It pulled their name. It did a search on that person. They used Chat GPT to come up with a research brief. They saved the research brief inside of a PDF in my Google Drive. They upload a phone, or excuse me, they upload the file and then they email it to me. So I'm going to see if it sent me an email so that you all are able to see that. And as you can see, there is an email. So it's a pre-call briefing. So booked by Whitney Barkley. So I did a test for myself. So it gives me my name, my title. It even gives some of my websites, my professional snapshot, what I'm able to do, what I might actually need and a suggested angle for the call. So it allows me to do research on my prospect before I'm able to talk to them, right? So just imagine how powerful that could be for a client, especially if they're one who needs to do a lot of consultations or discovery calls. So think about like a bakery owner or a trainer. Like, think about, people who need to talk to their clients in depth to know more about them. So this helps take out some of that work. Now, other relay applications that I've been able to build. So one, for example, is a monthly report. So I am a person who looks for requests for proposals. So I'm always looking out for proposals to fill out. And this is a a tool that I built where on the first of every month, it is going to monitor a page on the internet and tell me if there are new proposals that are available. So there's a program called there's a Kauffman Foundation. And so I'm looking actively for proposals there. So if you have clients who are actively looking for grants or funding opportunities, and if they come from a specific place, let's say they come from somewhere like Hello Alice, you might be able to set up a trigger to where every month their AI is actively looking for opportunities for them. And then it allows them to see those opportunities. And I get an email every single time. So again, this is a really great platform. It's very easy to use. I'm just going to show you really quickly. If you click on new workflow, on the side, you have an assistant and it will ask you, what can I help you build? So they have some examples that you're able to build. And so let's just say I wanted a YouTube video summarizer. So you put in your prompts and it's going to talk to you actively about what it is that you want to build. And you'll notice that in the middle section, it starts to actually build out the step-by-step process, right? And so if you click into each step, you can change the things like the YouTube URL. If you want to filter it to only talk about specific videos and specific topics, you can. But it gives you an opportunity to really see how the AI is building your automation in real time, and it talks to you. So it allows you to, accept or decline what it is that you want. And if you don't like specific things, you can talk directly with the assistant. So there's no coding involved, and it really gets you involved to build. Again, you have the opportunity to test these tools, and once they are ready to go, you publish them. Now, I will say that this environment runs on credits. So if you are on the free version, you may quickly have to buy a paid version just because it takes a lot of trial and error to test it to really make sure that the automations are working the way that they need to. But again, relay.app is a really great tool. A couple of other things too, like you are able to see the knowledge that you put on the back end. So if you have other files, you can see things that you've been able to put up. One of the things that I really love are the templates. So their community contributes multiple templates that your clients are able to use. So someone might say, hey, I'm not really sure how I can use this. They can go through these different templates to see what's available and to see if that sparks an interest on what they might be able to use. So that is Relay. So we talked a little bit about Chat GPT. We looked at Relay. I want to give a really quick example within Canva. Canva has a lot of AI tools, but one tool that's underutilized is their AI coding tool. So if we go to canva.com, you'll notice that in Canva, on the home screen, they have Canva AI. And if you click on Canva AI, there's a lot of different things that you can do, but there's a code feature. So I looked at a business that I work with locally here called Mama Aswan's Butter and Oils. So she does like body butters and all of the things for skincare. So an opportunity that I saw for her website is that she might need a lead magnet. How can she engage people immediately on the website? So one of the things that I use Canva to create is a quiz. So this is a quiz, and it's a quiz based off of her product line, and it helps clients based on their skin type discover what products is best for them. And so this is the actual Canva quiz builder environment that you're able to see. You can see multiple you can see the prompts, and I really broke it down. I actually used Chat GPT to come up with a Canva prompt that would work. So I did use an additional tool to make sure that we got the results that we needed, right? So we built the quiz, and it created an interactive quiz. It has 10 questions, a results page, different transitions, etc. So if we look in the live environment, let me pull it up. Let's see. One moment, you guys. I'm pulling this up for you. I'll publish. So I want you all to see the live environment. Oh, here we go. All right. So if we look into this environment and view it, so this is her quiz. We can start it, and I'm just answering just random questions just so you all can see how it works. So no coding at all. It built it for you. And we don't like these colors, right? Because we saw that her colors are branded like this nice bright pink and light pink. All those things can be changed on the back end. So it's recommending which products that people can possibly use, and then it's going to direct you to her website to actually shop, right? So I think, and that's a link that we'll have to fix. But again, Canva can be a really great source to create a new application or an interactive way for people to engage with their customer base. So I think, again, that is an underutilized feature within the tool. And then I know we have a few minutes left, so there's a few more that I would like to share with you all. So the next one that I would like to share is called Gamma. So this is Gamma.app. And so Gamma.app is a presentation website. So if you have clients who are struggling with presentations or even websites, you are able to build this, right? So if we go to Gamma and if we click create new, it's going to ask, how do you want to put things in? You can paste in text, you can generate text, or you can import. I'm going to generate. And the beauty of Gamma is that you can do a presentation, a web page, a document, or a social media post. So let's just say that we want to create a web page. So we want to create a web page for a skincare company that sells natural and organic products. All right. So it's going to create an outline for our particular website. So this is the outline of what the website is going to look like. It's going to kind of get that title, a background, why choose their product, signature collections, ingredients, sustainability, etc. All these things can be edited, but this is AI generated. I'm just going to leave everything to a default where we can have concise text. We have different visuals. If you are into AI image source models, you can figure out which model that you want. So if you are into things like the flux or the ideogram, any of these you are able to use, but I'm going to leave it as the default. I'm going to keep it at photorealistic, and you can also add different keywords. And so once you see that it generates, it is going to create, based on all of our criteria, it is going to develop a website. So the website is going to include all 10 of these different elements. So Discover Pure Radiance Natural and Organic Skincare is adding a Our Story section. And again, if people want to publish this website, they can purchase a domain and use this as a hosting platform. Now, this is probably not going to build like a Shopify style website where people can do a whole bunch of products, but it's if they need something basic like a landing page, this could be a really great opportunity. And again, Gamma is really good for presentation. So the websites are something extra, but again, I know that's a big pain point for a lot of our clients, but Gamma also does the presentation. So if people need a presentation, it will likely have kind of this look and feel, and then are able to look at it. And so I'm going to look at our website. I want to preview our website. So I'm going to publish the website. And this is all of the things. So we're able to modify anything that we see here. Now we can view the site. And so this is our site. And so we would have to update this with the different links. So we would obviously have to go back and make sure it looks right. But this is a clean website that we are able to leverage. And again, if a client is kind of starting at ground zero, or if they don't have a ton of resources, this could be a really great way to start establishing their web presence. And then finally, the last thing that I want to share with you all today is looking at Zapier because we talked a little bit about the automations, and I think that's going to be really important. So with Zapier, this is kind of the interface of the website. You notice they all kind of have the same look and feel. Now we're able to talk to AI and kind of share what it is that we want. But with Zapier, we have different zaps. So I'll show you all an example of one that I've used. So I had a Stripe account where if I did a workshop, I would get paid and my audience would never go to my mailing list. I would have to manually add every customer to my email list, and that was a pain. So I use Zapier as a middleman for those systems to talk to one another. So as you can see, there's a co-pilot on the side. I had a conversation and I just said, hey, I want my Stripe to connect to my Miller Lite. So when every time someone makes a payment, I can add their email into my email system. And so that's exactly what it did. So in Zapier, you can look up the app. In my case, it was Stripe. When you look it up, you log in and give them permission to go through. You test the step. And then you have your MailerLite, which is also my email platform. I had to do the same thing. I logged in and I picked my subscriber group. So I created a group. So every person who made a purchase from a specific date went into this specific group. And so Zapier allowed for those things to happen over time. Now, if you use Zapier or if you help your client integrate things, know that you get 5 free connections a month. So you can connect 5 different connections that you want to see. So this could serve as one connection, and then you would have 4 others that you will be able to use. If they choose to upgrade, this tool I think is about $20 a month. But again, it helps create automation for things that may not always speak to one another at one time. So, those are just kind of, some of a quick look, a quick look at some of the different tools that are available outside of like a chat GPT that you might want to leverage. And so I'm going to send you all this presentation. There's a number of different tools that you're able to use. For example, I'm going to show really quickly just one, then I am done. So I'm going to go to Google Gemini because I actually have one that's already ready to go. We don't have to generate it. So if you have, let's say, a client who has a product-based business, which, we get a lot of people who have like the body butters or the fashion. This is a dress from a local vendor here in Dayton. And I said, I want to place this dress on a model that is an African American woman, medium size, with a bright pink bob wig. She's in her early 30s. This will be displayed on our website, full body. So this is Google Gemini. And I use a tool called Nano Banana. And Nano Banana is inside of the settings here. And you want to make sure it's clicked when you prompt it. So it took this dress and it put it on this woman, right? So this is kind of what I envisioned. So then, let's say you want to market your dress and you want to put it in a different format. You can take that same picture. So you download it and upload it here. And I put this woman walks into a party with all eyes on her, admiring her new dress. So it generated this image.
That dress is everything. You see her on.
So it's a very small 8-second clip. But, these are powerful for social media because, again, if we look at something like a dress, people want to see what it looks like on a person to really see if it fits or if it's something that's for them. So this is a great opportunity to use their video editing and their photo editing tools to highlight a product or service because, typically you would have to hire a photographer. It has to be a whole thing. But now you're able to leverage AI to make those products come to life. So again, I'm going to make sure that you guys have a list of all of these different tools that we shared today, in addition to some others that you might want to explore with your clients. And, and I'll just say as a last step, in order to implement some of these things, right? Think about the things that we looked at today and see if there's an opportunity to identify a problem with the client and see if one of these tools fits. I always give it a 30-day time period, like give people 30 days to really test it and try it out, and then document it if you have a win or a lesson. If something worked, what worked, and if it didn't work, how can you improve it over time? And then they have to decide that they want to automate, delegate, or drop that tool, and then go on to the next problem. The best part of AI is to learn by doing, and that is always going to be the best way for them to determine if the tools work for them. And so I just like to say on a final note that our brilliance isn't up for automation, but our busy work is. And so I hope that you guys are open-minded and see some of the different possibilities for your clients and ways that they can really start to automate some of the things that they're having challenges with. So this is my contact information. If you guys ever have any questions about AI, or if you're like, hey, Whitney, I'm not sure if a tool exists, please feel free to reach out to me. This is my LinkedIn information. I love to connect and answer any questions that you guys may have. So thank you.
Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this. I think it was, I mean, I learned a lot. I don't know if you guys have ever used any of
Yeah.
these platforms, but
Really?
yeah, I think Relay is my favorite. Now I want to go and use that one right away. So, do you guys have any quick questions for her?
A quick question. You mentioned $20 for the last one, the Zapier. Are the previous one you mentioned paid or free?
So we looked at, are you talking about the Relay?
Now the ones you mentioned with ChatGPT doing the GPTs and all this content you
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I can give you just kind of a summary. So ChatGPT, there's a $20 a month version. Now they have a $25 a month version for businesses too. Canva is free. I mean, they all have a free version. Canva is free, or they have a $12 a month version. That's the pro. Google Gemini, if your clients have a Gmail account that they use like for the workspace that they pay for, Gemini comes a part of that workspace. There are some free capabilities with the free Gmail account, but the capabilities are expanded if you have a workplace account. And then the relay.ai, relay is about $27 a month if you do the paid version. But again, they do have a free version that you are able to use, but the credits are kind of limited. I found that when I tried to use the free one, I couldn't even get to using it functionally until I really tested everything to make sure it worked. So, I mean, if people want to test it, they can, but eventually the paid version will be a better option if they find that it has value for them. And then again, like I said, the Zapier, they give you 5 free zaps a month, and it's about $20 a month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Covered it all.
Okay.
Really comprehensive.
Yeah, yeah, we have the recording too, so that'll be good to look back and share with all the students who didn't show up.
Quick question for the group. Is there a tool that surprised you or something that you were like, oh, I've never seen that before or heard about it?
A lot of them actually, but I think I really liked Gamma for the websites because I think maybe a lot of entrepreneurs they want help working with websites and it's a lot of like busy work. So to be able to use those tools and I also think because like with the entrepreneurs, they have a lot going on in their personal life too. So to be able to automate or kind of scrap out a lot of the busy work and be able to use those tools, I think would be really helpful. So maybe in our next client interactions, we can like encourage them to use AI and explore these tools, which would kind of help them focus more on their business instead of, again, all the other busy work that comes along with it. So I think it was really helpful
That's
to
good.
learn. Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
then I don't know, like I use ChatGPT a ton, but I haven't seen like the scheduling feature or something. So that you can have a constant reminder to do something or like come up with something creative, which a lot of clients get stuck in the mud of like they're trying to do something every day and they can't think down the line. And so they can have something else kind of thinking for them in the back of their mind so that they have a reminder to do something or come up with an idea or something like that.
Absolutely.
For me, it's the custom GPT that was very, very revealing because you can actually put a template because sometimes you use ChatGPT and every time it gets something different,
Mhm.
giving it a template that it can refer to so that it's disciplined. I think that's also very great.
Awesome. Thank you. Grace, what about you?
My personal favorite was the Canva quiz. Like, I think that when I think of like a quizzes or like a form someone fills out, it's like typically super boring. So it was interesting to see like how it could be customized, but also like that's something very accessible to the entrepreneurs if they don't have a consultant to help them out and if they're not super familiar with the technology.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you. I was just curious. I know it's always interesting to see what tools people have already heard of or haven't. So hopefully you all take something away that you can apply for those entrepreneurs.
Well, thank you for your time, Whitney. I appreciate you meeting with us today, and hopefully we'll see you back in South Bend next year for part 3 for the entrepreneurs.
I hope so too. Thank you.